Welcome to the Richmond Center for Christian Study. The mission of the Richmond Study Center is to bring gospel transformation to individuals and communities within the greater Richmond area by fostering serious consideration and discussion of biblical worldview and how that worldview speaks to every area of life and culture. For more information about the Richmond Center for Christian Study, visit us on the web at richmondstudycenter.org. This is the fourth part of a 5-part video series entitled The Current Economic Crisis: How to Live Well in a Time of Uncertainty. Our special guest, Dr. Amy Sherman, Senior Fellow at the Sagamore Institute for Policy Research, will speak specifically about how the Bible calls us to think about our budgets during times of economic difficulty, and will offer creative, biblically based ways that families can find greater financial security and become more effective for the kingdom of God.
All right, so we've talked about these three strategies to fight this privatism thing, and I want to talk a little bit about what are some steps to really practically kind of put that into place. All right, so the first one is pretty simple, and that is, if you're married, at least you ought to be talking to your spouse about these things. You ought to be talking very openly with one another about money. Both people ought to know what the family income is, where it's coming from, where it's going. And you married couples really need to set your goals together about saving and giving. Now, if you want to, divide and conquer and, have one person specifically, like actually writing the checks and paying the bills, fine. I'm sure there's all sorts of practical things that married people do to kind of divide and conquer. But you don't want either the husband or the wife just sort of knowing all the information and not really being accountable to one another. Okay? That's kind of not rocket science. All right. The second thing, though, is a little more scary, and that is I really want to encourage you to consider getting into accountability relationships with at least one or two or three other people where you literally bring your budgets to each other. Okay, I know that sounds kind of scary. First of all, some of you are like, budget, yeah, I kind of know what that word means, but I don't actually have one. Which is why y'all have to go to Crown Financial Ministries, and they'll help you make a budget. And then when you get your budget together, you really, I know this is radical and hard, but I really think it's what we have to do. Now, maybe it's too scary to actually come right out and say, this is how much money I make, this is how much money I give away. Well, then at least share with a couple close, trusted friends, family, whatever, kind of percentages. What general percentage of your income are you giving away? What general percentage of your income are you saving? Percentage of income are you spending, say, on your housing? All that kind of stuff. This is the only way we're going to get beyond this sort of lonely insecurity. We've got to have some other people knowing what's going on with us. My failing is I'm sort of an oversaver. So the way that this sort of thing works in my life is not so much that I spend too much money. In fact, most of my friends are usually in my life saying, you should buy, you should buy, you should buy. But mine is overly saving, because I have this sort of protectiveness thing towards my mom, and kind of feel this sense of responsibility, like, what if anything ever happened to mom? I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to sort of take care of my mom. And so I need somebody to come in, and say, hey, too much. You're not really putting your money where your mouth is in terms of really trusting God. That He is going to take care of your mom. Not that obviously I have some responsibility, but again, if when I think the rule of thumb here really has to do kind of with our emotions. It's not necessarily that I'm able to give you some wonderful formula. I mean, we all kind of, at least I'm a total Pharisee. I would love to like have a rule for everything. So here we are, I make $80,000 a year, therefore I should save exactly $10,000, I should give away exactly whatever, and then I got my nice little rules and I follow them. Sorry, but the Bible unfortunately just doesn't give us a lot of those level of practical rules. So it's actually what I have to be willing to do, and what other people in my life have to be willing to do, is I've got to be willing to not so much even talk about the number, but be willing to admit the motivation. The number is big because I'm scared. The number is big because I don't really trust God. That's the bottom line for why the number is what the number is. So somebody's got to say, hey, I think the number's too big. Or, why did you buy, why did you feel like you had to be in this house? Well, because, I wanted a safe neighborhood for my kid. Okay, all right, that's not an illegitimate thing. But are you trying, if you're really honest, are you like trying to build this whole bubble of protection around your children? Because you just think if you could just, if they're just in the right school and they wear the helmet when they ride their bike and you buy the SUV and you live in the right neighborhood and you do this and you do this and you do this, then they're going to be safe. Sorry, folks, they're not. They're just not. My friend Gary Haugen has an interesting, I got to sit down, sorry, my back is killing me. My friend Gary Haugen, who runs the International Justice Mission, has written a book called Just Courage. And he says, it's kind of ironic. Lots of people buy houses in suburban neighborhoods where there's, they're kind of away from the big streets and stuff. And a lot of them have little cul-de-sacs, and all this sort of traffic calming things. Because you want to have this sense of little Johnny can go out there and ride his tricycle around and, be safe or whatever. And he says, what's really ironic is that most traffic accidents with children have to do with people backing up. And so actually, raising your child in these like suburban cul-de-sacs is actually more dangerous than like raising them in my neighborhood. I live in the hood, and we got little kids that are always, buzzing around on their bikes in the parking lot of the old rundown Quickie Mart. And so anyway, so we got to be willing to talk about these motivations. So, be willing to admit that you're maybe an oversaver or an overspender. If you're an overspender, are you willing to actually hand your credit card over to your best friend and say, for at least a month, you just got to hold this credit card for me. And then you got to be there for me when, for whatever reason, I'm going out to do the shopaholic thing because it's really an emotional thing. And I got to call you and say, I'm dying to go buy something because I need it to perk me up, or I'm depressed, or I just had a fight with my husband, or whatever it is, the reason that really underlies why we're going out and buying stuff. And get your friend to say, okay, I'm going to come over, we're going to hang out, we're going to go exercise, we're going to talk, we're going to pray, we're going to do whatever. This is the kind of relationship we actually gotta have. And then if you're in a small group fellowship, what about setting aside 4, 5, 6 weeks of your time together in a weekly, Bible study meeting or whatever, and really starting to get honest? Not necessarily all of you sharing all your budgets together, but at least being honest enough to really talk about questions like these. I'm going to read them because some of you on this side of the room can't see them. In what ways do increasing numbers of possessions bind us to a particular life, a particular location, occupation, income, etc.? Can we discern our true vocation amidst the pressure to sustain our present material lifestyle? Are you an engineer because you like the salary and you like your boat and you like your this and your that and your other, but deep down in your gut, you really know God called you to be a history teacher,